Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are listening from. You are joining us for episode 16 of ARCHAT, a ridiculously high number.
I can't believe
We,
we're at 16 already.
no, I know, it's insane. But today we are joined by Jen Hannon. Jen, you have a very interesting past. You are a founder, you are a consultant, you are a fractional marketer. So please give us a little bit of background on what you're doing now and where you came from.
Hold up. Most important title, you're also mom.
I'm a mom. Yeah, I'm a toddler. I dropped her off and she had a great drop off. Yes, mom is probably the most important, but thank
Awesome.
you guys. I appreciate being here and I love what you're doing in this community. I think I said this in the intro, getting perspective from different AR people always helps my strategy and just expands my view of what is possible with AR. But like Nathan said, I started my own marketing firm about a year ago. I left Red Hat after almost 7 years to start a marketing firm specialized in analyst relations and product marketing, and then also servicing startups as a full service marketing firm. It's been really fun. I've met a lot of great people. I'm in Colorado, so a lot of great startups here, but also have been able to network more than I was able to when I was at Red Hat. My past, I came from comms. So I started in PR, working for some of the PR giants, so like MSL Group, Hill and Knowlton on the corporate comm side, and then found myself in tech marketing with a smaller startup that was sold, a GRC startup, and then worked at Splunk. And as I said, Red Hat doing analyst relations and then product marketing for about 4 years.
Just can't believe that Splunk and Red Hat and we've not met before, but
I know, it's wild.
that's a whole different thing. We'll get into that.
Well, clearly it was meant to be, right?
Of course.
Here we are today.
So
Crystal bringing people together.
Jen, really quickly, just as a part of the introduction, you shared an interesting factoid with us as we were chatting before we got started that in your neck of the woods in Colorado, which you wouldn't think of, there's actually a vibrant startup ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it's fascinating. So I'm in Golden, Colorado, and the School of Mines is one of the best engineering schools. And they just started like a new co-working space, but really to facilitate all of the graduates who come out with a startup, right? And so it's called the Beck Venture Center. I think Google's investing. There's a lot of tech
Awesome.
companies investing. It's really cool to see because when I moved here 10 years ago, it was not that. But there's a lot of students coming out with startup ideas and they don't have that marketing background, right? Like they have that engineering background and they're really looking for some marketing perspective. How do I do market research? What's my TAM? How do I get started? How do I get market validation? How do I go to market? Like so many questions that I've been able to kind of tap into that network.
I think that is a big part of today's conversation because I definitely want to get into that. But before we do that, Crystal, you want to take us away with your first question?
Why, thank you, Nathan. Can I do a little shout out? One
Yeah.
of our engineers in our early days at AR Insights, her son went to the School of Mines. And they're from your neck of the woods in the Boulder area. So a little shout out to Cindy Fazio there. But so taking us back to OG time, what are your thoughts about beginning stages of our little corner of technology ecosystem?
Yeah, I love this question. So IBM, I think, had a big factor in it. And I was also thinking one of the big PR agencies, right? Like influencing the influencers. But I like to think that Gideon Gartner, when he started Gartner, told IBM or somebody, hey, you need to do this role. You need to create this role. And this person is going to do X, Y, Z because there's too many people coming asking for whatever it is. So I feel like maybe I read his biography, which was really good, just understanding.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's like, I think it's just called Gartner, but it
Of
kind
course.
of,
Of course it is.
Gartner. But it talks about, his engineering background, his parents and their background. And I think he was a musician, like a really good musician. And it talks about his like innovation and his ideas and his risk taking, how he thought differently than everybody else and was really pushing IBM. And I think he was at like a financial investment firm before, tried to start like this Gartner inside these firms, but it never worked. So he eventually went off on his own. But I
Maybe
feel like
we need to go buy the book and read that, and because that's
Right.
where the Genesis story is going to come from, Crystal.
Right. And what's kind of interesting is someone had actually said, Nathan, were you and I talking about this somewhere where someone was saying that Gartner was actually a really great financial analyst? Who did I have that conversation with?
me, but I'm willing to claim it if it makes me sound better.
Yeah.
Okay.
You were talking to the both of us about it, Crystal, so, feel validated. It was both of us.
Was it both of us? No.
No, you haven't spoken to me about it either.
I literally have like short-term memory loss because this week has been a lot, but all good stuff. Nathan and I just wrapped up a really quick sprint where we were prepping for the Product Marketing Alliance AR Summit, where we were able to keynote. And
I'm just sort of the applause hype man for you.
thank you. And it was really great. And it was really fun to be in the ecosystem. And Jen, what Nathan was referencing before we got started with our sort of intro question was you also spent some time as a product marketer.
Yes, I did. I was on the Ansible business unit, so the automation and AI business unit at Red Hat, and it was great. I think you've talked about this before on your show, just like the path from AR, where can you go? I think creating those internal stakeholder relationships is so important and them seeing your value. And that's how I got my role. I was really close with two of the business units, and that was the business unit they were launching on all scalers. And it was something I was passionate about and I wanted to just try and see. And it was great. I mean, I got exposed to sales, engineering, partner marketing, like everyone, right? Like you sit at the center, and I worked with 10 plus other PMMs. And I think I was the only one with an AR background. So they didn't really understand how to work with the analysts, the value the analysts bring to them. So I did a lot of internal education for the PMMs at Red Hat so that they were able to work better with the AR team and ask for the things that they needed, right? So if we were creating papers or messaging or positioning, or we had questions, we can kind of bring in the right analysts.
It's interesting because you said you've done comms, you've done analyst, you've done PMM. I sort of see when I'm getting briefings and that a lot of those roles but I've not seen many people who've done each one of those roles. Do you know what I mean? We tend to see that sort of cohort of people on calls, but not somebody who's kind of done all three. So maybe I'm leading up to a question.
Yeah, I think the question is, because I was actually going to ask this, Stephen, so perfect setup. I mean,
yeah,
since you have worn kind of all the external facing analyst related hats, what have been the similarities or the shared skills between those positions? And obviously, what have been the big differences? What has been your overall takeaway from those different experiences?
This is why this show works really well, Jen. I ramble and come up with a setup, and then Nathan does a really good question.
Nathan is like, I think this is what you're saying, Stephen.
Yeah. So
I translate for a living. That's what AR is about.
Yeah, you're adding value, Nathan. Adding value.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So I think what's common between all of them is the ability to simplify, clarify, and bring people together and move people, right? Get everyone to buy into what we're doing and get them to move. Because most of the time it's like a side project, right? Like I'm asking my product marketer or my engineer or somebody more technical to help me with something to get, right? It's an odd add-on. It's not part of their job. So letting them know why this is important, getting buy-in from the top so that it's easier for me to get buy-in from everyone else, I think is a commonality, right? Because you have press, there's just so much happening there. What's different? When you're a product marketer, you are just involved in everything. You see all of it and you're in it and you are the source of truth, right? So everyone's coming to you for reviews, approvals, and you're starting everything. And you have more, I think, at least for me, more of an impact in terms of roadmap, like what's on the roadmap, changing the roadmap, messaging, positioning, because you're hearing from the sales team, you're hearing from customer insights, you're hearing from engineers, what's working, what's not working. And then you can pull in kind of the AR and the PR. But then you have a role, your role is not that you have more of a say, but you can do more as a PM than AR.
I mean, I think listening to that, it's interesting. The sort of interaction between the product manager and the product marketing manager. When I was at IBM with the product management role I had, it was a big product, so they split it to inbound and outbound. And the outbound was to be that sort of sales and marketing interface. The inbound was to work with development and sort of engineering. So it's really interesting. I think where I learned about this space was as a product manager working with hand and glove through a big launch with some really good product marketers. And I think the sort of touch points that we're talking about are really fascinating. If you've got a really good product manager, a really good PMM, and somebody in comms and AR, you've got a superpower. You've got a superpower team there.
Can I double click on that? I'm sorry, Jen. This is a little bit of a curveball for you. Maybe I'm going to get a little spicy here. We did a call with Matt Eastwood, and we were talking about the future of AR and how there seems to be there is a consolidation going on, right, of roles. And we were talking about, do you see market intelligence, CI, and maybe even product marketing sort of morphing in some ways into each other? And he was like, I don't know, because the personalities are just so different. So that's the curveball. Not that spicy, a little spicy, but I didn't realize just how different the personalities are, even with product marketers. So the fact that because I think of you and I think of just dynamic and full of life and just wicked smart. Not that they're not, but it is a different thing. I know, that's spicy.
Are these other roles not full of life, Crystal?
I mean, they're full of life, but it's delivering messaging in a real life way is, I think, a really special thing.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously they're great at their jobs. It's just I didn't really appreciate what Matt was saying about like these personalities and the people that are attracted to these roles or do really good. They're literally just attacking their lane from a different perspective. Right?
Yeah.
Can I add to that question?
Likely.
Like the spicy part of that question then might be, is AR best fit in product marketing based on your experience? That's a question we talk about a lot. So yeah,
That's
Crystal,
such a good one.
to add to your question.
Yeah, that's a great one. I think it depends on the organization, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's one size fits all. It just depends on the organization. Mm-hmm. So at Red Hat, we were under comms, but we had like the VP of comms at Red Hat. She's dynamite. Like she was a past lawyer. Like she had so much respect at a high level. We were involved. We had as an AR team, we had access to everything we needed. And there was a lot of relationships that we had built. And so we were under comms, but I mean, I felt like I sat in the business unit and I was part of all their weekly meetings. I asked to be part of a lot of different conversations. So I think there's a way to do it. I think it just depends on your organization. I do feel it helps to be under product marketing because then you're exposed to all of everything that's happening, right? The obstacles, what's coming, what are the questions.
I think you hit something really interesting there, and it was so subtle, but it's probably worth sort of bringing out. I sat here, but I did this.
That's exactly what I was going to double click on.
I think you're going to sit somewhere, you're going to have a reporting line, but I don't think define what you do and the value you bring by what your reporting line is. Obviously, You've got to service sort of what your organization needs and hit those key KPIs. But I think what I sort of picked up from that is I got involved in a bunch of meetings. I got sort of engaged in things. I think if you can do that, then you're in a really different place.
This was actually my parting thought on Crystal and I's PMA presentation yesterday. I'd said, did
you do a PMA presentation this week?
I don't know.
Did we? I don't know. That's news to me, Nathan.
I know. We're totally self-promoting. Sorry, Jen.
Self-promoting, but also providing
Is there a
context.
link that we can see in the comments below?
Maybe.
Maybe. Even as an analyst, you should know context is important, right? You have to set up the thought you're about to deliver. Come on,
I'm
man.
just busting on you, Nathan. You know I am.
But I was going to say, I said something along the lines of, if the doors don't exist, don't be afraid to create them on your own. Like, I think good AR is a series of dotted line relationships as much as it is solid line relationships on the org chart. Like,
people I see doing this job span comms, AR, PR, product management, PMM. They're sort of bouncing around the organization, trying to add value to all of those parts of the organization. Those are the best pros that I work with. I literally had that conversation with Mary McMahon yesterday. Mary and I met in Cleveland. She's going to be a guest on the show, I think. We literally had that conversation for about 10 minutes. And that's one of the things why I want to get her on the show. Just connecting across some of those disciplines is where the value comes.
Yeah. And educating people because they don't they think they know what
Yeah.
you can do with AR. They think a lot of these different stakeholders, they think they know, but they don't really know. So taking the time to be part of the meetings, be part of the conversations, pull out, like I would pull out, hey, we have XYZ questions. We have 3 BU leaders who are not in agreement. I can bring in these 2 analysts with different perspectives. Let's get in a room. Let's talk this out and have the analysts help drive alignment within the businesses.
Wow,
would
that's
be
partnership.
that
Yeah,
is
and that's
partnership.
trust, right? That's the relationship, that's the trust, that's knocking down that door.
And that's you building that initial trust and then the analyst taking it home, right?
Exactly. And I prep my team, I prep the analysts. Hey, analysts, don't tell them I told you this, but here's where we're at, right? We're not
Well, you've
aligning
got to
on.
trust. I mean, it's so vital, the trust on both sides. You've got to be able to understand the strategy of where your business is going, be able to see the sort of patterns
Yeah.
of we need some help, then have a strong enough relationship with the analyst to be able to go, hey, I need to speak off the record. We're going to need some help. There's some bumpy roads ahead. You know, I'm going to pull you into a couple of things. Being able to have both of those conversations and understand the wider context, that's elite level game in my mind.
Yeah.
This relates to a question I was going to ask as a follow-up, which is you have sat in comms and you have sat in product marketing, and maybe we focus on product marketing for this, but please feel free to bring in comms. Do you feel that product marketers are becoming more savvy and aware of the influence and ways to work with analysts, or do you think that is still a learning area? Like, it sounds like based on your past, you were able to help internally educate, which is probably just as important as the external education we do. So I'd be kind of interested in your view on what it was like when you were in that role, and based on your perception, where you think it is today.
I think they're not as savvy. They're so busy. There's so much as a product marketer. You're back to back. Like, you don't have time to focus. And if you haven't sat in the AR role doing AR day in, day out through different evals, different firms, I think the analyst ecosystem, there's so much nuance. Like, it's complex. And if you haven't actually done it small and even at a large company, right? Because at a large company, you have more money, more access, more SaaS days, evals. Like, there's so much more. If you don't understand how to navigate that, how to work with the firms, how to push their buttons. Like, I'm working with clients that with a smaller budget and their sales reps are new. They don't even know what's possible. I'm pushing. I'm saying, actually, we want this. We can do this. This is how you do it. So I'm even training their salespeople to give us what we need, because they're not going to do it for you, right? Like, some of them are. They've known at Red Hat. Our reps were with us for years. So they understood what we needed. We knew the boundaries. But honestly, once IBM acquired us, like, the doors opened. It was like, you can do all this.
I think Nathan,
Keys to the kingdom.
Yes.
as I circulate around some PMMs, there's probably sort of 3 different views, and I'm formulating this view as I'm speaking. There's the kind of classic view manager dot plot and where it is on a report. Then there'll be the big 3 or 4 type focus of, you do more than that, but you only do it with Gartner, IDC, Forrester, maybe, maybe 1 or 2 others. There's very, very few PMMs who know about the modern landscape of boutiques, different firms do different things, the whole where influencer and kind of analysts and, people like Keith Townsend and Joe Peterson and, a whole bunch of others kind of fit and play, and the blurred lines between there's very, very few PMMs that understand that sort of landscape. I mean, there's just few analyst relations people who understand that landscape, let alone PMMs.
Well, it's a complex landscape.
Yeah. I mean, so I'd say there's the 3 buckets of you just manage reports, a bit more evolved than that, and you work with the GIF, plus a couple of sort of specialist people that they've come across. But there's very, very few. If it's 1% of PMMs who understand the true AR landscape, that's where I'd put it.
Yeah, I this is a thought I often have, like when I was walking around the show floor at RSA this past year, full of cybersecurity companies, lots of cybersecurities with flush budgets. Cybersecurity is one of the areas that always gets money. And then you go on LinkedIn and you just look at the companies, and there's a lot of them that don't have AR functions. And so this kind of relates to how I wanted to transition the conversation, which is, Jen, you're working with companies at the earliest stages of their existence. how are you working with analysts? Do you, or is it more focused on, public relations and brand awareness, which analysts can play a role in? And I guess to relate to my rambling thought about RSA, do you think companies are overestimating how much success they can have with analysts if they just have that aligned to a product marketing role?
I was at RSA too, and it was wild. But I did see a lot of companies have like we were IDC
Yeah,
MarketScape
I did too.
everywhere. Every booth had it. Your question. So let me think about this one.
Yeah, I threw you like 80 different things at
Yeah.
once.
So I'm gonna answer one of them, and then you might have to remind me of the other one.
Yeah.
So with early stage, usually I come in, PR, obviously awareness, messaging is the biggest thing. A lot of companies don't know how to message to their different personas. They think they have their core message, and it's okay for like the internal communication. This is who we are to understand, but then they do not know how to slice that into I'm talking to, a CIO or IT automations practitioner. So I focus on messaging. And then at a certain stage when they have, product fit, customers, revenue, then that's when I start to look at which analysts and start small, right? We start small.
Yep.
Who's influential? Who's going to be the right analyst for us to talk to? It doesn't have to be at a big scale. We do free briefings. We do events. I always like to think about it as what's unique about your startup, your new company. What is the only thing that you do that no one else does? Really think of it like that and try to position it that way versus coming in. And I've had a lot of PMMs that I work with and CMOs come in and they want to just give them like a 50 PDF pitch talking about the market. And I'm like, they don't care. They're not going
Wait,
to remember.
50-page slide
Right.
deck is my personal purgatory. Anyone that knows me knows long slides.
Is it purgatory or is it hell, Crystal? It sounds more like hell.
Yeah, I was trying to be kind.
It's interesting. It's interesting we mentioned this. Just my messaging framework is the deck that I go through is how to sell anything in 5 charts. It's actually a structure for 5
It's
charts.
really hard to do.
It's really hard to do.
It's it's really hard to, you have so much knowledge, doing AR, Red Hat, like all of these big, bring it down. One of the things I learned this last year, how do I simplify like low, like AR 101, maybe below 101? How do you simplify that and make that valuable? Because a lot of people look at it as like a dollar sign, where it doesn't have to be a dollar sign right away. And there's a lot of free information, right? Like there's free content on websites. Large enterprises are buying these reports. You can get them for free. So there's a lot of different ways that you can extract that analyst value without pain, and also to the analyst when you're ready and you have market fit and you can talk about your customers can talk about it honestly. Like I think a lot of people have said this, but your customers are those are your champions. They're going to change the analysts' minds. They're going to validate what you're saying to the analyst, because you can say, we're number one in this and whatever, but you have a customer coming in and saying, here's what I did. Here's my before and after. Here's exactly what I did, how I implemented it, and how X vendor helped me along the journey. And here's where we're going and why we're investing. I mean, that's money right there, right? Like that's where you want to get.
I mean, I look at my retainer relationships and my advisory relationships. I've got some mega cap companies, people like AWS and Oracle and IBM in there. But probably my most interesting are with the smaller companies, because they maybe need more help. Maybe they're more willing to accept help. And I'm typically working with the C-suite. I was literally just chatting to a CEO this morning, and he's like, we're on a growth trajectory. I want to look at acquisition strategy. I need somebody to help me think through, understands this market. You don't get that access with a mega cap. Maybe you do. But
And that's a great point. That's one of the values of talking to analysts, because the large enterprises are asking you, who do I need to acquire? Who do I partner with? What do you think? That's one of the biggest things I pull out.
I gave him 3 acquisition targets in a half an hour call this morning, and he's like, okay, we need to talk.
Stephen, I've got a question for you. We often ask, should early stage companies be engaging with analysts, at the earliest possible opportunity to help determine product market fit, et cetera? Jen just talked a bit about that. Do you think the analyst landscape makes it easy enough for early stage companies to engage with analysts?
So you just look at, I just literally had this conversation this week. Forrester's got a clip level. They won't talk to you and do advisory. I think it's $50 million of revenue. So, there's one of the big three that just won't pick up the phone.
And it's, to be fair, we can look up the specifics, but I believe it's like subscription-based relationships.
Yeah. So, and I'm
Well, I
not
think
throw Forrester under the bus.
Yeah.
That's absolutely. I'm just saying one of the Forrester reps, Forrester analysts, pinged me and said, "Hey, I can't work with this client, but they should work with you." I think it's really tough. We talked about awareness and knowledge of R and those three kind of buckets. Very few people know about the boutique and independent space. Point number one. Then there's a lot of us with lots of different firms, everything from individuals to small firms. How do you map that landscape? So how do you find the person who is the right person? And then how do you build that trust? Because we come with no brand. We're not a Gartner, an IDC. So you're gonna say to your CEO, I'll pick on me just because I'm on the call. Hey, you should have a relationship with Stephen. He works for Hyperframe. Who are
and
Hyperframe?
CEO is like, who's Steven? What's a
Yeah.
hyperframe, right?
Yeah, you might have done all the good work, Jen, and you might have go, Stephen's exactly the right. I'm talking about myself in the third person here, which is always interesting. But, you might say, this is the right person, this is the right analyst. And then they looked him up on LinkedIn and it's like, well, they're a one-person firm. I thought you were going to get me connected to Gartner. And you're like, well, A, Gartner's the wrong firm. B, the barrier to building a contract with them is our entire marketing budget, let alone our analyst relations budget. And this analyst's going to actually be able to help you more. Trying to position that with a leadership team is really hard.
Yep.
Jen, how do you do that?
Yeah, no, I love this question. I think of it like a business plan. And I actually talked to a colleague, Andy Mann, a couple of weeks ago, and he's out of Boulder. He's a CTO, product leader, analyst. And we had this discussion and he was a CTO. So I was like, if I was coming to you, what would you need? And usually what I do is I have a business plan. I look at numbers. I look at what does my business need, right? At a high level corporate organization, what's the business plan? What's the business goal? And then my business unit, right? So like if I'm supporting, the automation business unit or the contain, whatever business unit, what's their specific goal? And it's different, right? Sometimes it's just awareness. Sometimes they need product insight, right? Like something's not working. And now those are different analysts, right? Those are different analyst firms. Where, what industries do we need to go after? Is FSI struggling? Is it transportation? Is it what industry? So I kind of look at a lot of different things and it's not one size fits all, right? I really think it depends on that vendor need, the actual product need, and then look at it from which analysts at what firms are going to help me achieve that, right? Whether it's, I need somebody who's going to amplify my voice, who's out there, right? Who's credible, who's trusted by my customers, talking to your customers to figure out who are you reading and who do you trust? Because if they don't trust, XYZ, then what's the point of working with them?
The biggest
I love
set
this.
of conversations I have is people and Nathan, you'll have a perspective on this. I've got 2K to throw at analysts for the entire year. That includes advisory, content, and activations. How do you best spend 152K when that is the entire landscape of your budget? That is the most interesting problem for me to try and I end up being AR sort of consultant to, you want to get 3 or 4. How do you get 3 or 4 analysts talking about you when you've got 150K budget? I have all the time.
I'm not going to, I don't feel like I'm going to answer your question, but you can get analysts talking about you without spending money. I mean, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how to answer
amount of money. And so yes to 0 and yes to 15, 20K.
Well, and let's be real, in enterprise business, we're all playing a long game, right? And the investments that we make in each other will hopefully pan out either with that relationship or another one, right?
Yeah,
for sure.
Jen, I just wanted to really highlight something that you said that I think a lot of times people forget across the board. It doesn't matter, AR, wherever. But what you said was you create a business plan, right? Based off of what the goals are. Essentially, you're saying, like, let's be real, we're all playing to a P&L. And so let's take that framework and figure out. So the problem isn't, why do you talk to Steven? The solution is, or the framing is, this is what you want to get. I have identified this for these reasons, and the results should equal back to your P&L.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And it's different, right? Sometimes you need go-to-market help. You don't have the right content. You don't have the webinars. So you do one-off, right? And then you get this great webinar you can slice and dice, you can use in different formats. Or you get an analyst to come, honestly, like user conference, like at your user conference. That's the best way to engage, I think, with so many different analysts. So go invite them to your user conference if you're big enough, or go to the events that they're at, right? KubeCon, go to RSA, go to those events, run into them. Do you know what I mean? Like, there are ways that you can do this. And
guerrilla AR, as I call it, is
Yeah.
like in guerrilla marketing. I'll go back to Mary. Mary saw me at a conference that was in her city and said, "Oh, can I come down and buy you a coffee?" There's ways you can get to analysts and get to build relationships without having a formal program or having big dollars. But I think you've got to lean into the second, and this is what I put on my post this week on LinkedIn. You've got to lean into the relations part of the job. You've got to be that connector and that relationship builder, because if you don't have money to put into the system, or you've got limited budget to put into the system, how are you going to buy influence and engagement? You can build that via relationships.
Yeah. And that's a good point. Like, I built so many relationships over the years I've been working in AR and the access I've had, that I carry that with me. And so if there's an analyst that has left one of the big three, I follow them because I know the value. I know, and I'm going to put money towards them. I just worked with somebody I haven't worked with in 12 years, but I had a client. I'm like, she's great. She's got personality. She knows what she's talking about. I've already validated her. I've worked with her. And so, that trust and that relationship. And you know what? Sometimes if there's no budget, she'll have a conversation, one off, right? And it doesn't cost anything, but it does come back to that relationship.
And you've got to put those tokens into that relationship over time. You've got to done the just ad hoc check-in. We've had this conversation, Crystal, in the past. Analyst relations is not sending an email. It is so, it's like, oh, the information's on our portal, go have a read.
It's like, yes, but also.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, there's email. Yes, there are things that are just transactional. But then there's also, hey, I saw this LinkedIn post. Here, you send a quick text and say, this could be really interesting. I'd love to double down on this and see if there's something here, right?
Or help amplify them on LinkedIn, right? There's a lot of analysts on LinkedIn. Follow them. It's free to follow them. Connect with them. If Steven's putting something out, let me repost it with my thoughts. Let me have that conversation.
Hop into my comments, add some value. I mean, that costs nothing.
And according to Becca from LinkedIn, you guys know Becca Chambers, right? She will
Does anybody not know Becca from LinkedIn?
Well, you know what was funny? She had recently this, and we'll probably need to wrap up because we're getting at that time, but she had said, like, commenting is the new reposting, right? And I wrote comment, but really though? And then I actually had a comment, but it was kind of funny.
You called me out for my joke of commenting for reach. I was being ironic in there, but yeah.
No, it's true though. I mean, you actually look at the algorithm, and the algorithm rewards high quality engagement. And Stephen, you said it. It takes no effort. Why it takes a little effort, but it doesn't take a lot to go authentically engage. And I think that's the bedrock of this profession: authentic, reciprocal engagement.
I said it in my post about Mary coming down into the city to spend 90 minutes with me and have a coffee. Every time Verint now publishes something, I'm just going to be 10% more curious, 10% more interested, because I'm like, I know if I'm interested in this, Mary's going to return my call on my email, or I can go and find out more. I'm just 10%. I'm not got any sort of affinity with Verint. I'm obviously going to assess the market dispassionately. Just 10% more interested because I know the person who runs the AR program is interested in me.
Right.
That's so valuable.
Yeah, it's valuable. And they're top of mind, right? So like all of these little engagements, like you're having so many conversations. It's just when somebody asks you, hey, do you know a vendor that does XYZ? You can be like, oh yeah, I just talked to them. I just talked to their customer, because they've had all those touch points, right? They've talked to you along their journey. They've included you along their journey and showed you all of their progress. And I think that's valuable, right? Because I
100%.
think a lot of the value in AR is not the reports, but that verbal conversation, the inquiries, but even more so those, water cooler conversations, so I think
100%.
that's
So,
Well
Jen,
said.
with all of this, I'm going to try to wrap us up and ask you, what do you think is going to happen in the future? Or what would you aspire for us in our sector of technology land?
Yeah, I like this one. I would like to see AR more of like that strategic intelligence role, the corporate strategy or something, working really closely with corporate strategy and being the glue for all the different businesses, right? Even if it's competitive intelligence, partner marketing, and just, I think there's a lot of value that AR people have. One, they have a lot of insights, and it's not just, right? You're just so internal sometimes. It's just everything in this little bubble, and AR people are out there gathering different perspectives, different insights from so many different knowledgeable people. That's a lot of value, especially in this AI crazy overhyped world. I think that's really important to bring in. And I
We
also
did well to not mention AI for
I
40
know we
minutes.
did.
We did
And
in 2025. That's going to be a record, right?
yeah, but I think with this craziness of just it's so overhyped, I think analysts are even more important to kind of like check people, right? Say, no, dude, it's not actually the way it works. That's pure marketing. Or, hey, like pump the brakes. But I also think as an internal driving function, AR can be that um, the internal strategic function, but a forcing function to get everyone on the same page, get alignment, and then amplify all of this knowledge, right? And help salespeople understand the market better. How do I talk to these people? What are the analysts? What are those questions that are coming up? How am I the best prepared? So I think there's a lot of work for AR to do, but I see AR as like maybe like a middle function and just
Absolutely.
all the lines out.
We could not have said it better ourselves. So, with that, you have been listening to episode 16 of AR Chat. Jen, you have been an absolutely fantastic guest. Connect with her on LinkedIn. If you're not, follow her. If you're in need of some AR advice as an early stage startup, drop her a line. We'll see you next time.
Thank you guys. This was great.